You don't need a sign, you need to stop waiting for one. You checked your phone 41 times today, waiting for a message that would make the decision for you. It didn't come. It was never going to come. Somewhere in your chest, right now, there is a decision you have already made. You just haven't admitted it out loud. Not to your partner. Not to your friends. Not even fully to yourself, in the dark, at 3 a.m., when the ceiling is the only thing listening. Here's what's about to happen in the next 30 minutes. I'm going to take that decision out of the shadow you've been keeping it in. I'm going to show you exactly why you've been stalling, what that stalling has cost you, and what happens the moment you stop. Some of what I say is going to feel like I've been standing in your kitchen at midnight, watching you stare at your own reflection in the microwave door instead of going to bed. That's not a trick. That's just what waiting looks like from the outside. It looks the same on everyone. You are here because some part of you already knows the sign isn't coming. You've been telling yourself a story, that you're being careful, that you're being wise, that you're waiting for clarity. But clarity was never the thing you were missing. You've had clarity for months. Maybe years. What you've been missing is permission. And nobody is going to hand you that. Not your mother. Not your boss. Not the universe, lining up license plates and cloud shapes to whisper, yes, in a language you'd actually believe. You were seen tonight. Not because I know your name. Because I know the shape of this exact hour, in this exact kind of life, and I know what it does to a person to keep waiting for a door that was never going to knock on itself. So sit with that for a second. Then let's start where it always starts, with the voice. The voice. There is a voice in your head that speaks before you do. It gets there first. Every single time. You think about starting the thing, the business, the move, the conversation, the leaving, and before your foot is even off the ground, the voice is already talking. Not yet. Not like this. Wait for a better time. It sounds so reasonable. That's the trick. It never screams. It reasons. You didn't invent that voice. You inherited it. It was built, piece by piece, out of every warning you were ever given before you were old enough to test whether the warning was true. A parent who flinched at risk because risk had once cost them everything. A teacher who called your daydream unrealistic in front of the class, and 30 kids laughed, and something in you sealed shut that day. A first failure, magnified by an audience, that taught you failure is public and permanent, when really it's private and temporary almost every single time. That voice was assembled to keep a much smaller version of you alive. Understand that. It's not lying to hurt you. It's lying because it thinks danger is still what it was when you were 7, a bigger kid, a raised hand, a room that goes quiet when you get the answer wrong. Back then, the voice had a job. Stay small. Stay quiet. Don't get noticed, because getting noticed is how you get hurt. That worked. It kept you safe long enough to grow up. But you did grow up. And the voice didn't get the memo. It's still guarding a version of you that doesn't exist anymore, using rules that don't apply anymore, and it has never once been asked to retire. Nobody hands the inner critic a farewell party. It just keeps working the same shift, year after year, terrified of a threat that left the building a decade ago. Here's the part that matters most. The voice doesn't actually predict anything. It only repeats. It takes the worst 5 seconds of your life, the time you were laughed at, the time you were left, the time you tried and it fell apart in front of everyone, and it loops those 5 seconds every time you stand near a new door. It's not warning you about the future. It's replaying the past and calling it a forecast. That's the entire mechanism. 5 seconds of old pain, dressed up as tomorrow's certainty. Think about the actual content of what it says to you. You'll fail. Based on what? Not on this attempt, you haven't made this attempt yet. It's basing that sentence on a different failure, in a different year, when you were a different person with different resources, different knowledge, different hands. The voice is a lawyer arguing a case with evidence from a trial that already ended. And you keep letting it win, because it talks fast, and it talks first, and nobody ever taught you that you're allowed to cross-examine it. You've built your whole waiting ritual around that voice without noticing. You call it thinking it through. You call it being responsible. Watch yourself the next time you feel it. Watch how the moment you get close to something real, sending the application, ending the relationship that's been quietly dying for 2 years, telling your family the plan, the voice doesn't argue with facts. It argues with feelings dressed as facts. It doesn't feel right. Something's off. I just have a bad feeling. Vague enough that you can never disprove it. Specific enough that it stops you cold. That's the design. A wall built entirely out of fog. You can't punch fog. You can't out-argue a feeling with a spreadsheet. So you don't fight it. You just stop walking toward the wall, and you call that stopping wisdom, and you go back to bed, and the voice goes quiet again, not because it won, but because it doesn't need to keep talking once you've already frozen. Here's what nobody told you: the voice isn't your enemy, and it isn't your compass either. It's an old recording playing in a room you've since redecorated. You don't have to silence it. You don't have to argue with it at 3 a.m. until you win. You just have to stop mistaking its volume for its accuracy. Loud is not the same as true. That voice has been loud your entire life, and it has been wrong about you more times than you have ever bothered to count. Somewhere in you, underneath the recording, there is a second voice. Quieter. Older, in a different way, not older like scared, older like grounded. It doesn't shout warnings. It states facts. It's the one that says, calmly, without drama, you already know what you want to do. That voice doesn't need convincing. It's been ready for a while. It's just been waiting for the loud one to finally run out of breath. It's about to. Because now we're going to look directly at what the loud voice is actually protecting you from. And once you see it clearly, not as a monster, but as a mechanism, it starts losing its grip on the room. The lie. Here's the lie: that waiting is neutral. That standing still costs you nothing while you gather more information, more confidence, more certainty. You think you're parked. You're not parked. You're moving backward, and the scenery is just similar enough from one day to the next that you can't see the drift. Let's talk about what fear actually is, underneath the story you tell about it. Fear is not a warning system built for your dreams. It's a warning system built for your body, tuned for threats that could kill you in seconds: a predator, a fall, a fire. It floods you with the same chemicals whether you're facing a bear or facing a hard conversation with your father. Your heart doesn't know the difference. Neither does your stomach. That's why sending one email can make your hands shake like you're standing at a cliff edge. Biologically, as far as your body is concerned, you are. But a bear will actually eat you. A hard conversation will not. A failed attempt will not. Rejection will not. And here is the part that should make you angry on your own behalf: your nervous system cannot yet tell the difference between a threat to your life and a threat to your comfort. It treats both like emergencies. It floods you with the same adrenaline whether you're about to be attacked or about to be embarrassed. So you feel like you're in danger, and you make decisions like you're in danger: freeze, avoid, retreat, when the actual, physical risk in front of you is almost always zero. That's the lie at its root. Fear feels like information about the world. It's actually information about your body's ancient, blunt instrument alarm system, which was calibrated for a world with far fewer emails and far more lions. You've been treating a smoke detector going off because you toasted bread as though the house is actually on fire. Doubt works the same way, from a different angle. Doubt convinces you it's protecting you from a bad decision. But look closer, and you'll see doubt rarely shows up with a better option. It just shows up with an objection. It doesn't say, do this instead. It says, not that. It never offers the map. It just keeps you standing at the trailhead, pointing out that the path might have rocks on it, as if any path anyone has ever walked didn't. There's a psychological term for what's actually running the show here: loss aversion. Your brain weighs a potential loss almost twice as heavily as an equivalent gain. Losing €50 hurts roughly twice as much as finding €50 feels good. That imbalance isn't a flaw in you specifically, it's baked into every human brain, a leftover survival setting from a time when losing your food supply could mean not surviving the winter. Which means, right now, your brain is instinctively weighing the pain of a hypothetical failure twice as heavily as the joy of a very real, very possible success. That's not caution. That's a rigged scale, and you've been trusting it like it's balanced. Add to that something called the status quo bias, the simple, stubborn preference for whatever is already happening, purely because it's already happening. Not because it's good. Not because it's working. Just because it's familiar, and familiar reads as safe to a brain built for survival, not for growth. You could be in a job that's hollowing you out. You could be in a relationship that ended emotionally 2 years before it ends on paper. And some part of your mind will still whisper, at least you know what this is, as if knowing what's hurting you is a form of protection. Now here's the part that flips the whole equation. While you wait for certainty, certainty is not accumulating in your favor. Time is not gathering evidence for you while you sit still. It's gathering evidence against you. Every month you don't send the portfolio, someone with less talent and more nerve sends theirs. Every year you don't leave, you get 1 year further from remembering who you were before you shrank yourself to fit the room. Waiting doesn't preserve your options. It quietly closes them, one by one, while insisting nothing is happening at all. This is the lie in full, that fear is a signal about the world, when it's a signal about your wiring. That doubt is guidance, when it's often just noise with nothing to offer but no. That standing still is safe, when it's the slowest, quietest way to lose the thing you were trying to protect. You have not been weak for feeling this. You have been human, running factory settings that were never updated for the life you're actually living now. Understanding the mechanism doesn't make the fear disappear. It's still going to show up tomorrow, when you get close to the door again. But you'll know something you didn't know before, that feeling is not proof you're in danger. It's proof you're standing at the edge of something that matters. That's it. That's all it's ever meant. And the people who actually crossed that edge, they weren't the ones who stopped feeling it. Let's talk about them. The ones who made it. There's a version of success you've been sold your whole life, and it's a lie of a different kind. In that version, the people who made it were built different. They didn't feel the fear you feel. They had some internal advantage, more confidence, more certainty, a sign that lit up clearly in front of them before they ever moved. That version is comfortable, because it lets you off the hook. If they were built different, then your hesitation isn't a choice. It's just proof you weren't one of the chosen ones. That version is false. Almost universally false. Look closely at anyone who built something real, and you find the same thing every time: they moved while terrified. Not after the fear left. During it. The fear didn't pack up and leave before they started. It rode in the passenger seat the entire way, and they drove anyway. Think about the woman who leaves a stable career in her 40s to start over in a field she has no credentials in. She isn't unafraid. She has a mortgage. She has people who depend on her income. She lies awake doing the math on whether this is reckless. But she also has one piece of information the fear doesn't have: she's already tried staying, and staying was killing something in her slowly enough that nobody around her could see it happening. She doesn't leap because she's certain. She leaps because the certainty of staying became worse than the uncertainty of going. That's not fearlessness. That's a different kind of math. Think about the man who starts the business that fails the first time. Everyone around him treats the failure like the end of the story. He treats it like the first draft. He goes back, not because he stopped being scared of failing again, he's more scared the second time, because now he knows exactly what failure costs, but because he's realized something the first attempt taught him for free: failing didn't kill him. It humbled him, it cost him money, it cost him some pride in front of people who were watching. And he survived every bit of it. The second attempt isn't built on confidence. It's built on data. He now has proof, personally lived, that the worst outcome is survivable. That proof is worth more than any pep talk. Think about the athlete who doesn't make the team the first 3 times she tries out. Coaches tell her she's not built for it. She hears that, and something in her does not argue back out loud. It just quietly refuses to accept the sentence as final. Not because she's certain she'll make it eventually. She isn't. She has no evidence that year 4 will be different from years 1 through 3. What she has is a refusal to let someone else's guess about her future outweigh her own decision to keep showing up. That refusal, repeated enough times, is what people later call talent, once it's paid off and easy to admire from a distance. Notice what's missing from every one of these people. None of them had a sign. None of them woke up one morning with clarity so complete that the fear evaporated and the path lit up. What they had, every one of them, was a moment where they stopped negotiating with the fear and started moving alongside it. The fear didn't leave the room. It just stopped being the one holding the door. Here's the detail that gets left out of the highlight reel version of these stories. Almost none of these people would have described themselves, in the moment, as brave. Brave is a word you get handed afterward, by people looking at the outcome. In the moment, it usually just felt like doing the next necessary thing while your stomach was in your throat. That's the whole secret, and it's almost insultingly simple. They did the thing scared. Not fearless. Scared, and moving anyway. And here's what should actually strike you, sitting where you are right now. Every one of those people had access to something you also have. Not talent. Talent is unevenly distributed, and pretending otherwise is its own kind of lie. What they had, equally available to you, was the ability to take one action before feeling ready. That's not a gift. It's not a personality trait you either have or don't. It's a decision, remade every single time it's required, usually while every nerve in your body is arguing against it. You've been waiting for the version of this where the fear goes first, so you can follow behind it into a bravery that feels clean. That version doesn't exist. It has never existed, not for one person who ever did anything that mattered to them. The fear doesn't go first. You go first, and the fear tags along, complaining the whole way, gradually getting quieter the longer you keep walking without turning around to argue with it. So if you've been waiting to feel like those people felt before you start, stop. They didn't feel ready either. They just stopped requiring readiness as a condition for movement. That's the entire difference between where they are and where you're standing right now. Not talent. Not luck. Not a sign. A decision to move with the fear still in the car. Now let's turn this on you directly. Because everything I just said about them is also already true about you, whether you've been willing to see it or not. Your real story. You've been telling yourself a story about your own hesitation, and it's the wrong story. The story goes like this: you're stuck because you're weak, because you're not disciplined enough, because everyone else seems to have figured out how to just do the thing while you're still circling it, exhausted, ashamed of how long you've been circling. That story is not just unkind. It's inaccurate. And I want to take it apart piece by piece, because you've been carrying it far longer than you should have. Look at the actual evidence of your life instead of the story you've built about it. You have already survived every hard year you were certain would break you. Every one. The year that felt unbearable at the time, you're not in it anymore. You walked out the other side of it, maybe limping, maybe changed, but out. That is not a small fact. That is proof, repeated across your entire life, that you are someone who gets through things. Not someone who avoids hard things. Someone who gets through them. Those are different people, and you've been mistaking yourself for the wrong one. The exhaustion you feel isn't weakness. Read that again, because it matters. The exhaustion you feel from carrying this decision around for months, maybe years, isn't proof that you're too tired to act. It's proof of how much energy it takes to hold something back that wants, desperately, to move forward. You haven't been resting. You've been restraining. Those feel similar from the inside, both leave you drained, but they are not the same thing, and only one of them is actually costing you something with nothing gained in return. Think about what it actually takes to suppress a decision you already know is right. Every day you don't make the call, some part of you has to actively hold the door shut. That's not passive. That's labor. You've been doing hard, invisible work for a long time now, and the only thing it's produced is more of the same tiredness, because the job was never finishable. You can't successfully suppress a true thing forever. You can only exhaust yourself trying. Here's the reframe, and I need you to actually let it land instead of nodding past it. Your hesitation was never proof you're not ready. It was proof you understood the stakes. People who don't hesitate before big decisions usually aren't being brave. They're being careless, or they haven't thought it through, or they have nothing left to lose, which is its own kind of tragedy. You hesitated because this matters to you. Because you have something real on the line, a family, a reputation, years of effort, a version of yourself you've worked to build. Hesitation in the face of real stakes isn't cowardice. It's evidence you're paying attention. But there is a difference between hesitation and paralysis, and you already know which one you've slipped into. Hesitation checks the ground before the next step. Paralysis stops walking altogether and calls it checking. You crossed that line a while ago, and some part of you has known it for longer than you've admitted. That's not a judgment. That's just the truth of where you're standing, and truth is the only place you can actually start from. Consider everything you've already built while you were supposedly stuck. The relationships you've held together. The responsibilities you've carried without dropping them, even on the days you wanted to. The version of yourself you show up as for other people, even when nobody's showing up like that for you. That took strength. Real strength, not the movie kind. You've been demonstrating capability this entire time, in every part of your life except the one part you've decided, without evidence, that you're incapable in. That's not a character flaw. That's a blind spot. And blind spots can be corrected, the moment you're willing to look at them directly. Here's what your fear has been protecting, and it's worth naming honestly, not your safety. Your identity. As long as you don't try, you don't have to test whether the story you've told about yourself is true. As long as the business stays a someday idea, it can stay perfect in your head, unfailed, unjudged. As long as you don't leave, you don't have to find out whether you can build a life alone and it turns out fine. The waiting isn't protecting your safety. It's protecting a fragile, untested version of your self-image from ever being tested. And that image was never going to survive contact with real life anyway, nobody's does. The only question is whether you test it on your terms, now, or let time and regret test it for you later, on terms you don't get to choose. You are not behind. I want to say that plainly, because the story in your head has almost certainly told you otherwise. You are not late. You are not the only one still figuring it out while everyone else has arrived somewhere solid. Nobody has arrived. Everyone you admire is also mid-sentence in their own story, still scared in rooms you don't see, still negotiating with their own version of this exact voice. The only real difference between you and them, right now, in this exact minute, is that some of them stopped waiting for the feeling to change before they let their actions change. That's available to you. Not someday. Not once you feel different. Right now, exactly as anxious, as tired, as unready as you feel at this moment. The readiness was never the prerequisite. It's usually the result. You don't feel ready and then act. You act, unready, and the acting is what finally produces something that starts to resemble readiness. You've had the order backwards your whole life, and it's cost you more time than you can get back, which is exactly why the next part isn't a suggestion. It's the moment the waiting actually has to end. The decision. Here is the sentence you've been avoiding: there is no sign coming. Not tonight. Not next month. Not after one more piece of research, one more conversation, one more sleep on it. The sign was never going to arrive, because the sign was never a real thing. It was a story you told yourself so the waiting would feel like strategy instead of what it actually is, which is fear wearing a disguise made of patience. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've known since the first sentence of this. There's a specific thing, one thing, not a vague cloud of, someday I should, but one concrete, nameable thing, that you have been circling for longer than you'd like to admit out loud. Maybe it's the business. Maybe it's the relationship you need to end, or the one you need to finally commit to. Maybe it's the conversation with your parent that's been rehearsed in your head 200 times and spoken zero. Maybe it's simply starting, the book, the training, the application, after years of calling yourself someone who's thinking about it. Stop calling it thinking. Thinking has an end point. What you've been doing has no end point, because it was never designed to end. It was designed to feel like movement while keeping you exactly where you are, and it has worked exactly as designed. That system doesn't need your permission to keep running. It only needs your continued participation. And participation is a choice you make fresh every single day, whether you notice yourself making it or not. Here is what the decision actually requires, and it's smaller than you've built it up to be in your head. Not a leap into the void. Not a complete transformation by tomorrow morning. One action. One specific, concrete, doable today action that moves the thing from your head into the world. Send the email. Make the call. Say the sentence out loud to the one person it needs to be said to. Book the appointment. Write the first paragraph, badly, and let it exist as a real thing instead of a perfect thing that only lives in your imagination, untested and therefore untouchable. The size of the first action doesn't matter. What matters is that it's real, and that it happens today, in the next 24 hours, not soon. Soon is where dreams get quietly buried, one soon at a time, until enough of them pile up that they can't be told apart from regret. Today is the only word that's ever actually moved anything. Not because today is magic. Because today is the only day you actually have any power over. Yesterday is finished. Tomorrow doesn't exist yet, and it never quite arrives, it just keeps rebranding itself as today, over and over, while you wait for a version of it that never comes. Understand what you're actually choosing between, because it's not safety versus risk, the way the voice has been framing it. It's risk versus a different risk. Staying isn't the safe option. It just looks that way because its cost is slower and quieter. The cost of not sending the application isn't zero, it's every version of your life that required you to send it. The cost of not ending the relationship isn't neutral, it's every year you spend further inside something that was already over. There is no door marked, no risk. There's only the door you can see the cost of, and the door whose cost you've been avoiding looking at directly. So look at it directly, right now. What has waiting already cost you? Not hypothetically, actually. Name it. The year you didn't take the leap and watched someone else take a similar one and call it their turning point. The version of the conversation you needed to have that instead calcified into distance you now call normal. The energy, spent daily, holding a door shut against something that was always going to eventually get through, one way or another. That cost is not hypothetical. It's already been paid. The only remaining question is whether you keep paying it. Here's the decision, stripped down to its actual size. Not, change your whole life tonight. Just this, stop requiring certainty as a condition for movement. Let the fear ride in the passenger seat, complaining, unconvinced, exactly like it did for every person who ever did anything that mattered. Drive anyway. Do the one thing tomorrow morning that your gut has already decided on, the one your mind has been arguing against with borrowed evidence from a past that doesn't apply anymore. You don't need the room to go quiet first. You don't need your hands to stop shaking before you dial the number. You don't need a sign from outside, because the sign was always meant to come from inside, and it's been there for a while, patient, steady, waiting for you to stop drowning it out with noise borrowed from an old, outdated alarm system. This is the moment where negotiating ends. Not because the fear is gone, it won't be, not tomorrow, maybe not for a long while. It ends because you've decided the fear doesn't get final say anymore. It gets a seat. It doesn't get the wheel. That's the whole shift, and it's available to you the second you stop waiting for it to feel different and start moving while it still feels exactly like this. Tomorrow morning, before the voice wakes up and starts its usual case, you move first. 1 action. Concrete. Named. Done before noon. That's it. That's the entire decision, and it's already yours to make. If this reached something in you tonight, subscribe, so the next one finds you exactly when you need it, because there will be another hour like this one, and you deserve to have something waiting for you when it comes. Share this with the one person you know who's been standing at their own door for too long. They need to hear that the sign isn't coming either, and that it's alright, because they never needed it in the first place. You don't need a sign. You needed permission, and you've just given it to yourself. This is LifeForge. Now forge yourself.